right, so what's the real reason why Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed? Because a lot of people think that it was because of homosexuality, which that was one reason, but that wasn't everything. Homosexuality been around for a while. It wasn't just the city is gay and so we're going to destroy it. It wasn't because of that. Um, what really happened is, well, first it wasn't just Sodom and Gomorrah. It was actually they were known as the five city states of the plain. So it was Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zor. They were called the five city states of the plain. And it wasn't like just God just came and he overthrew them for being gay and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean that ultimately led to other things, but it wasn't just for that reason. So it was the laws that they were passing in Sodom and Gomorrah that led to their destruction. I mean, I'm talking about ridiculous laws, totally unjust, things that nobody else was doing. And they became like totally depraved in their mind. Or I mean, it was when you learn about the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, you're going to ask yourself, why didn't God destroy them sooner? So what happened? First, let's a little bit of history. Keep this short and sweet. Um, at one time, Sodom and Gomorrah were ruled over by this country called Elam, which is in southern Iran today. I think Iran has a province called Elam. Now they weren't Iranian and stuff like that, because I know a lot of people don't know the difference between the Middle East actually has a lot of different ethnic groups. Iranians, 54% of the population of Iran are Persians. So Persians actually migrated from Europe a long time ago. The language they speak is dead on similar to Greek. Now, the people of Elam, they are actually Shemites. They settled in the southern part of what we know today as Iran. And what happened was the king, his name is Chedor Laomor. He ruled over the five city states. He ruled over them at one time, and they paid tribute to him for 12 years. But in the 13th year, they rebelled, I assume by not paying tribute. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer with an army, but he didn't come by himself. He came with Amraphel, who was the king of Shinar, which is we know today as Iraq. There's another king called Arioch, who was a king of Elasar. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this right. These are some ancient words. And they came with this king called Tidal, King of Nations, or in Hebrew it says Goim, King of Peoples. So I take it that this dude must have been a great king for him to call him King of Nations and stuff. So anyway, they warred with the other Amorite city states in the north of what we know today as Israel, and maybe some of the Canaanite city states. Amorites were Canaanites, but they warred in the north. It was giants in the land, and those four kings, they defeated the giants too, and then they came up against the five city states of the plain. So you had King Bera of Sodom, Bersha. Let me see. His name was Bera of Sodom, Bersha of Gomorrah, Shinab of Adamah, Shem Eber of Zeboim, and it doesn't mention the king of Bela. So it was 5 kings against 4 kings, and of course they were defeated. Sodom and Gomorrah and the other allied city states, they were defeated. And when they were defeated, a lot of the people were taken hostage by the other 4 kings that conquered them by Tidal. And Chedorlaomer, Amraphel, and Arioch. And that's when Abraham, with 300 of his servants that were trained in combat, they pursued after him, because Abraham's cousin Lot lived in Sodom. And so he pursued after those 4 kings, and God delivered those 4 kings into his hand, where he pretty much defeated them. He came up with a strategy and he defeated all 4 of them. And then that's when he was coming back. Abraham was coming back. It was the king of Salem, which we know today as Jerusalem, that came out and greeted Abraham, Melchizedek. He came out, and Abraham paid a tithe to this man. And as I learned, Melchizedek was Shem. You know how Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth? Melchizedek was Shem. Yeah, Shem was still alive at the time. Before the flood, they were living like close to 1,000 years, remember? So anyway, after that, you think that that will humble Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zor. They become more humble because, as I take it, these city states were rich. They weren't like poor people. They were very wealthy and very powerful, and they probably had, as one scholar said, they probably had a metropolitan population of over 1 million. Each city state probably had a population of over 1 million. So this was a very powerful, rich place, you know. And so what happened was, you think Sodom would have learned from that and been more humble? They didn't. So here are the actual sins of Sodom and Gomorrah. Of course, we already know the homosexuality thing was going on, right? But here's something that you didn't know. Another thing they did is that they would have these giant festivals. I suppose in the open country where they were at, they have these giant festivals where it was pretty much a giant orgy. You can grab another man's wife. You can grab another man's daughter. I don't doubt that it was man on man and woman on woman, but it was basically a giant orgy that these city states would have. Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zor was doing it too. And even then, they didn't get destroyed for that. That probably was, you know, it wasn't that. Then what happened was they passed a law in Sodom saying that if a foreigner come into their country, now a lot of city states and nations of ancient times, they depended on merchant caravans, merchant traders. They came in with goods, and you go into the marketplace, and you pay a little fee, and you set up your little tent or whatever you're selling, and and then they I guess as you leave and as you sell off your merchandise, as you're leaving, you pay another tax. So city states made money off this, you know what I'm saying? So one thing that was understood, you don't mess with merchant caravans. I think some city states would come with joint agreements, or some nations would come with joint agreements to say, hey, let's, even though I don't like you and you don't like me, let's not attack merchant caravans, and let's make sure we protect them, because everybody's making money off this. But Sodom and Gomorrah didn't care, so they passed a law saying that if a foreigner came into their land, they could actually rob them, and a foreigner couldn't do nothing about them. So the foreigner couldn't go to the constabulary or the police, basically the police of ancient time, and complain about it. He couldn't do nothing. So that's what they passed a law in all those 5 city states where you could rob people. Or it was one guy who was a merchant. He came in there with all his goods, and the people ran up on him of Sodom, and they ran up on him and they started taking his stuff. And all the kids and everybody, people just ran up on his merchant caravan and they started taking things. And I suppose he was trying to fight them off. I don't know. I can't remember if he was actually fighting them off or what happened. But like they stole everything he had. And so what he did was he went into the city of Sodom, to the constabulary. Forgive me if I'm not saying that right, but he went there to complain to the authorities, saying that, hey, I got robbed. And they asked him, like, well, were they citizens of Sodom? And he was like, yeah, they came out of this city. And the police were like, well, we can't do nothing about it. And that dude, of course, cried his eyes out, because he came from a far country. How was he going to get home? Well, I don't know how far he was, but, how was he going to get home? They robbed him of everything. And of course, God was watching this, like, because he sets up the governments, like the ordinances are set up by God. He sets this up for our own protection. And so he gives governments time to correct things. But if they fail to correct it and it gets to him, that's when he has to come down and do something about it. And it's also, Satan, he goes up to heaven and he rails against mankind. So he gets you to do something, and then he go tell on you after you done did it. So what happened was, after that, Sodom and Gomorrah, they all did it. They passed another law saying that, okay, if a foreigner come into the country and you make that foreigner bleed, you hit them and make them bleed, then that foreigner will have to pay you. So basically, another merchant caravan came into Sodom, and then the people started robbing them, but this one guy started fighting back. And then one of the men came up to him and punched him, and he fell and he started bleeding. And when he started bleeding, the man that hit him, that was robbing him and then gonna hit him, came up to him and said, you owe me money. And this dude was like, I'm not paying you nothing. You were trying to rob me. And so what happened was, the people that were robbing him went to the police in Sodom and told the police on him, the constabulary. They told him on it. It wasn't really a police per se like how we have today, but they had something like that. So they went and they had authorities that you could tell. And like they went, so the people that were robbing this guy went and told on him because one of them punched him and made him bleed, and he didn't want to pay him. You see how insane that is? And so the police came and arrested him. And then they brought him before a judge. And then, the man that was robbing him was there too. And he was like, hey, I hit this guy and he started bleeding. He's a foreigner. And he didn't want to pay me. And then the judge looked at the guy and said, is this true? He was like, dude, they were trying to rob me. They were robbing me. And the judge was like, well, you going to jail because he's a citizen of Sodom. And so the dude that was getting robbed, he picked up a rock and he took it and threw it at the judge and cracked him. And then the judge started bleeding. And the man said, well, now you pay me. So anyway, they must have killed him after. I don't know. But that was the situation. That's what happened. Forgive me, you guys don't see me wearing this a lot. I'm in Fukushima and it's kind of cold and stuff. I don't like running the heater all the time and stuff, but I mean, this thing really keeps you warm. I'm actually starting to get a little hot in this. I might take it off. But so anyway, now this was the straw that broke the camel's back. The straw that broke the camel's back was they passed a law in Sodom and Gomorrah, Adam, Zebul, and Zor. They all did it, saying that if a foreigner comes into their city, they can sexually assault them, they can rape them and get away with it. And that's when God himself came down. And Abraham asked him, are you going to destroy those cities? And God said, if it's as bad as I've been hearing, Satan been breaking through to heaven and railing on them, telling them what they've been doing. And other probably principality spirits been going to heaven. And sometimes, and they can't just go up there too. When Satan tries to go and accuse mankind before the throne, God has an angel up there that will fight him just to prevent him from ratting you out. So that's when God himself came down. He said, if it's as bad as I've been hearing, and now you understand when the two angels entered the city of Sodom and Lot saw them, he said, you guys can't be out here. He tried to hurry up and rush them into his house. And then the men start beating at the door. And they said, who are those men that you brought in? Bring them out so we can rape them. That's what they were doing. That's what they were doing. You got to imagine, it could have been a family or something going in there. I suppose it was for women too. They could rape women too. Men, women, children. So imagine if you were a foreign family coming in there looking for refuge and they all get sexually assaulted and gang raped by these people in Sodom and Gomorrah. Of course, God came down and destroyed them. And he said, if it's 10 people in there that were righteous, 10. And there weren't even 10 people in there that was righteous. And God saved Lot because Lot was living amongst them. God saved Lot and his family when they were taking a long time, because the angels told Lot to get out of the city, and when they were taking a long time, the angels came and they dragged Lot out of the city. They dragged him out of the city, and they even told him that we can't do nothing until you leave. You have to go. And then his wife going to turn around and lament for that city that was being over. You can rape people in that city, and she lamenting for it. So yeah, she got turned into salt. But those angels couldn't even do nothing until Lot left. And then if you also read after, because this happens in Genesis chapter as far as the war between the kings Sodom and Gomorrah and title, that's Genesis chapter 14. But of course, after that, I forget which chapter, you'll find out about the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, which we all know. But even after that, you see what happened with Lot and his daughters. Now Lot told the angel that cannot go into Zor, which Zor was doing it too. And they said, and Zor got spared Lot. So really, God only overthrew 4 city-states. And while they were in that cave, I believe they were in the cave, Lot and his daughters. And Lot and his daughters, Lot daughters got him drunk and slept with him. Where do you think they learned that? To sleep with their father. Where do you think they learned that? Sodom and Gomorrah, that's what was going on there. So the Bible's giving you hints because God is not an accuser. He doesn't go around accusing people. So he's not the accuser. But yeah, that's what Sodom and Gomorrah did. It's a lot more to the story. I mean, sometimes you hear about bad things happening to people in the Bible. God ain't gonna tell you everything they did. He's only gonna tell you key things that they did. He ain't gonna tell you everything because he's not trying to get nobody. But if it was 10 people in Sodom, God would have spared it. It wasn't even 10. I don't know if he meant that for Sodom, Gomorrah, Adam, Zebul, and Zor, but whatever, Abraham did say, are you going to overthrow those cities? I believe he said cities as in plural. And so it wasn't even 10 in all those cities, not even 10 people. That wouldn't rape some family or rape some woman or rape a man or rape his little daughter or rape his son if they foreigners and come in there. What type of crap is that? So the only thing that made me angry about it is this, I'm surprised God didn't destroy them sooner, but that he did. I mean, I'm not trying to be all cold hearted and but the fact that he overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, I'm like, hallelujah, thank God. So uh, anytime you hear about something bad happening, it's like more. It's probably more to the story. I'm not saying it's always that way, but you just don't. You just really don't know. So yeah, I just want to speak on that later.